I'm here with Anne Laure Jackson, my friend. Hello, Anne.
Hello, great to be here.
We are always looking at sensory health. We've done more than 50 of these interviews, which is awesome. And hopefully, we're giving people around the world something that can improve their lives. Now, as a radio station, we exist to encourage, to build up. But with people like you and some of our other specialists, we're really, I hope, making an impact into lives. And this one is special because it's sensory health, which affects every single one of us, whether we know it or not.
Absolutely.
Now, I was will be chatting with Dr. Richard Scott about this one right at the very start of this one. I don't know how you're going to take to this one. I We had a question that came in, okay, and the question he went, "Ooh, ooh, that's really good," and then. Having said it was good, he wants to do a whole thing on it. So I'll ask the question, and I do have a sensory health spin. Okay, so
Mhm.
do people with red hair really have a higher pain threshold during childbirth? Generally, I also seem to remember something about red haired people needing to have more pain relief with dental work. So my sensory question is: do you know of anything like natural hair color that could influence sensory health?
What a question. Goodness me, that's one for right. Let's open it up there. I have no idea, but it's firing off lots of things in my head because it's like, oh, so I'm really curious to see what others have said. Has anybody else spoken into this yet or not? Or
No,
am I
no,
kind
that's
of
next
like,
week.
no?
He's gone off to do a whole load of research because it was one of a few questions we had for him for medical stuff. And he said, "Oh, I like this because I instinctively think, well, of course not." But then he also thought, yes, but it could. And if you've got somebody asking it, it's possibly because they do, and therefore it might be a thing. So he didn't know. So he's gone off to research whether or not red hair has an effect on physical health in regards to specifically pain relief. Does it nullify it? So I thought, well, are there any kind of obvious physical things that perhaps would affect sensory health that we might not expect?
Well, it's a brilliant question to ask, and it's just like, with all the numbers of people that I've seen over the last 30 years, I cannot say, because for me, I'm thinking we've got pain registration, we've got general interoception, which is that ability to feel what's going on inside us, which would relate to pain. So pain would connect to the tactile system and our interoceptors. Um, I have never in my clinical experience put that put those together. There would be absolutely no correlation for me, but I'd be absolutely fascinated if somebody came up with something. And I'm trying to think, is there anything? Because nerve pathways develop in the womb. So, but teeth. We have people who are particularly sensitive in their teeth, in their oral motor area. That's the trigeminal nerve. It's a different nerve that is being affected to other parts of the body. So they could have sensitivities in certain um, neural pathways and not in others, but connected to red hair. Um, um, I do have an issue with dyed hair, but that's a different matter
Ooh,
because that is I do want somebody to um, explore and to research the impact of hair dye in mothers who are pregnant. Because I don't know. I just remember when I went to the hairdressers once, I wasn't pregnant or anything, but I had quite a reaction to some hair dye. I don't know why even I was doing it because I don't dye my hair. So there must have been something that I was doing for a specific reason, which caused me to go into a hairdresser and to have something different done to my hair. I don't think it was the era when I was getting perms. Now, that is an area if anybody's like listening, is like, oh yeah, I had one of those too. But there's something about hair dye and a reaction because everything that we put on our skin is absorbed straight into our systems. And without putting to put any, hairdressers out of business because that's not what we want. I would love somebody to actually research what happens with the things that we put on our hair, put on our skin, and what impact that has on a developing child. Or what kind of substances stay within our nervous system if it's not healthy, if it's not a natural substance, where does it all go and what impact might it have
you
on
and
our
Richard,
bodies?
you and Richard have a very similar face when you're thinking really hard. about something that shouldn't be, that could be, that you're thinking, is it? I don't know. It's really interesting. You got a very similar kind of, huh. It's quite fun. I know for Jo, when she goes to the hairdressers, which is really, really rare, okay, they always say, "Oh wow, your hair is so beautiful and amazing. What do you do to it?" And Jo always says, "Nothing." I mean,
Mm,
literally nothing. She washes her hair and she brushes it. Well, you must do lots of treatments. No, no, nothing. And she hasn't done for, I mean, I've been married nearly 30 years. She's never done that.
mm,
And they're always amazed how beautiful and it's better than everybody's hair that they've ever seen. No, no, I never touch it. And she's even used like a bar of soap now for her hair because it's even better. It's even more natural. And she's really happy with that. And she's got beautiful blonde hair. And it's really interesting that people assume she's done something because how good it is.
mm,
But fascinatingly, off the back of your conversation about hair, actually, she doesn't do anything to her hair apart from wash it very regularly and brush it.
mm. Simple, beautiful.
Yes.
I think life, we really have like overcomplicated an awful lot of life. That includes the stimulation that we put into life. But anywhere, everything that I'm doing is like, how can I simplify? How can I make this easier? We've become very accustomed to having a very cluttered type of life, a very busy life. And I know I certainly feel on a friendship basis, it's just like I need to carve out time to make sure that I have time to spend with people. Because it's very easy to get on and do stuff that you want to do, but actually it's important that we live with those margins in life so that we can either recoup from a sensory perspective if we've been really full on, or literally just because it's good for our overall well-being and general health.
I think the thing with social media, though, in particular, is I mean, you think globally. I know we definitely do because we broadcast around the world. So we're always thinking about the morning and the afternoon being the same for different people. So we're always thinking about how different people are interacting at different times. Um, but I think with social media in particular, people say, "Oh, when can I message you?" Now, most people who know me really well will know that I don't respond on a Saturday because basically it's my day off. I work a 6 day week, so people who know me really, really well know that. Other people who don't say, "Oh, when can I message you?" Whenever you like. Oh, well, what if I disturb you? You won't. I can promise you. There are ways of getting hold of me if you're close enough to me, but most people don't have that. And so I say to people, don't think about when you're going to message me. Just send me a message. And if I am there and I'm going to respond, like I'm at work on Saturday because I'm going down for a conference. So therefore, message me if you want to. But I think it's like, oh, can I message you? Can or not? It's like the old thing. I don't know what your rule was in your house, but after 9 o'clock, it's like, oh, that's serious. 9 o'clock in the evening, if the phone rings, someone's died, someone's had an accident. No, no, not necessarily.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had that too. Yeah, kind of like 9 o'clock. So I still have that. It's funny the things that you do absorb.
But yeah, I can get a message from somebody who's 6 hours behind me that comes o'clock it's 3 o'clock in the morning when they're messaging me, or they frequently will have a chat. If I'm awake at midnight, we'll have a great chat because they're very wide awake and have lots of time. But actually, it's those those moments of our two time zones crossing over is quite rare because it's very late for me. But I was thinking about hair and stuff because I think that is an interesting one because hair can be so much scratchy and itchy if you've got some sort of tactile thing. I know I was sat behind a woman with very long hair one day, and I think it was a train or a bus, and she kept on flicking her hair, and I really had to resist the urge to slap her
Mm.
because every time she did it, it was flicking me in the face and the eyes. I was much closer than I would have been happy with, but it's like, could I? I held it, but I really wanted to slap her, which is not my usual way. But it was really irritating because it was catching me in the eyes behind my glasses because you really flick her hair around. It's like, why? Why are you doing that? Could you not
Mm.
just stand still like all the other people in the carriage or whatever it was? But I guess for some people, that's sensory healthy, isn't it?
Oh, totally. And that what was happening to your skin system as she was like kind of flicking you there, you get the fight or flight response, which was that automatic. I just want to like just
Yeah.
stop it. And it's an automatic reaction, not because you're an angry, aggressive gentleman, because you're not. It's
No.
just the way that we're wired, that is part of a protective mechanism that should be there to protect us, but we don't want it to move into that kind of aggression, and that's so much the case in the home, in the workplace, at schools. That something happens, especially that unexpected touch, and it fires off this fight or fright or like response, which is just not helpful. So well done you for keeping it together. But goodness me, it's just like the smallest thing. Again, if she could have done that, just to be aware of what she's doing, then that would be most helpful.
I would imagine from a sensory perspective, a little shake of the head would have probably done just as much physiologically as a massive shake of the head and flicking me in the eye?
Depending on her vestibular system.
Oh,
So
okay.
some people would need the intensity, but then it's just like, well, you put your head backwards and forwards. There's always a way. When somebody's coming to me and saying, look, I'm really bothered by this, or that's really bugging me, or I don't like doing this, or what else can I do? It's just like, well, let's dissect which system are we talking about in the first place? Then what level of intensity are you looking at? And then what are the options of being able to hit that intensity? So that you're not disturbing the gentleman behind you who's sitting there. What else can you do if you really need to move? Because it could have been or tie your hair back or flip your head upside down or do a little twirl. There are lots of different things when you understand how the systems work that you can replace. So replace something that is not helpful or that is unwanted by somebody else or by yourself, and then supplant it with something that meets that sensory need, but in a way that is much, much more acceptable and happy.
Likely aside, I know that we both go to church. We're both into that sort of stuff, which is fine. But I remember being in a church and we had there were three women that particularly like to use banners to music, and they would do this particular dance they used to do, and it was quite good. But one of them seemed to have very little concept of what the banner was doing, and we would sort of move back if we knew they were going to do something. We would all move back so many pews in the church because these banners were quite long, and
Mm.
one of them seemed to be really good, really lovely. Enjoyed what she was doing. It was graceful. It was beautiful. Another one seemed to like to try and flip people in the second row. And I don't think it was necessarily malicious. So she thought, as much as she thought it was quite funny, but those things, it's like a whip and you
Ah.
flick it. And I still remember the noise and sort of, that visual immediate reaction of fright or flight, which is what happened exactly the same thing with the hair. Because I mean, it was actually getting behind my, it was impressive because it was catching my eyes behind glasses. But I think going back 25, 30 years, this isn't meant to be a historical lament, but 25, 30 years ago, I think most people on a train carriage would be thinking, well, there's other people in the carriage. I need to think about the people around me. And I think we would be better at that. Now, I think the negative of that is you probably would stifle some of who we are to try and make ourselves look normal, whatever that meant. And I think we've kind of swung too far the other way, where it's now acceptable for particularly children to make as much noise as they like. We don't want them to be silent and they can run around and kick things. And well, it's great that they're not stifled, but actually just the opposite concept to what happened 25, 30 years ago.
Mm.
There are still people around you. And that woman with the hair, which was quite a long time ago, I think we do need to be conscious. I think we've spoken on this many times. Yes, you may have a sensory struggle, but you still have to exist in the world around you.
Mm. And I think we had a discussion in one of the schools yesterday that there is neuro-affirming language, which is wonderful. We need to affirm people in who they are. We don't want anybody feeling that they're stupid, that they're lazy, that they're awful, or they're a waste of space. All kinds of words that can be thrown at children, and certainly teachers are not doing that. But sometimes by saying, by being so neuro-affirming, by saying, oh, you give permission for almost anything to happen. And it's like, no, it doesn't need to be, because I still use the word treat. So we had a discussion about whether I'm actually treating somebody or not. And again, it came up that, like, yes, I totally and utterly value that individual for who they are. And there are certain things. If you're autistic, there are certain ways that you think, and that's absolutely 100% just the way that you think. There is nothing to either affirm or negate in that. It's just the way that you are. But if you are bothered by your skin system, which means that you can't actually go to sleep, or that you can't even go on a bus because you're so overwhelmed, that really gets in the way of life. And so therefore, I think it really is important that we do treat. So we honor, we respect, we do affirm, but we also need to accept that there are things that we can actually do about these things. And if anybody has another word, if anybody's listening and has a better word than actually treating, then I'm happy to consider it. But it was just an interesting discussion that we had as to how to manage these things without just accepting anybody can do anything. And especially going back to that church context, that's not honoring to others. It's how can we honor everybody within it, not just one way of doing things.
One could say, if you've had something sorted in your sensory health, that your body might see it as a treat. That's not even me being silly. Actually, it would be a treat to everybody else and you, because now oh, do you know, I'm not going through life, and somebody's standing there, and the sun came through, and it hit my arm, and I didn't want to scream because now I'm okay. Actually, it could be a bit of a treat for the system.
That is a lovely way. Andy B, that's another one. I'm taking that one as a, I like, that's beautiful. Yes.
Yes.
How to be able to communicate the positives of when we sometimes, for some bizarre reason, associate treatment with a negative, and that's really nice. No, I am treating them because it's good for their system, and they will feel good for it, and they do. All the comments that we've been having, really lovely of individuals like settling and doing things that they couldn't do before, holding one mum's hand. He would always run across the road. He would always like do all kinds of things, and we treated his little system, and he's as happy as Larry. He comes up for cuddles, which he never did before. He's
Oh,
holding hands, and he's a lot more settled in school. So I met with the school and chat with them too.
it's
So it's just like, oh,
it's a
great.
treat. It's a treat. It
It's a
really is. Yeah, but we have these approaches to life, and whether it's medical or sensory health, we either think, well, let's get this so we can get on with our lives and we can interact and we can have a job, we can do all the things we're supposed to do. I read something the other day about there's a lady, I'm sure it was in the US. Recently, we get loads of news articles through, and it was somebody in the US who has Down syndrome, and she'd applied for so many jobs. Everyone had rejected her and said, no, you can't do the job. So, with some help, she started a bakery. And I think it's huge. I think she's got like 26 staff or something, if I remember the article. I read a lot of news articles, but she's been told, no, you got Down syndrome, you can't do this. You're not able to work in an heated environment or whatever. So she started her own business, which I just think's fab, which is
brilliant.
proof of what we can do. But at the same time, actually, there's sort of a flip side of yes, but we have to work within who we are. I mean, I was thinking about the teeth thing because I haven't been to a dentist for a long time, but it was probably about 10 years at one point, and Joe said, right, let's go. I wasn't in pain. I didn't have any problems. I just found myself, I hated the dentist in my mouth because they sort of operated within me, quite a vulnerable situation inside my mouth, but never really spoke. They just, yes, this, that, it's got this, and that's that. Hello, I'm here. I'm the reason why you're even in my mouth in the first place. So we actually found a dentist who had a real compassion to the fact that if you're going to move from one tooth to the next, could you please tell me what you're doing and why? Don't use medical jargon because I'm sitting here having a panic attack thinking, what on earth is that? I mean, yes, there's this and there's that. And I'm thinking, I'm not medical. I'm not a dentist. I have no clue what you've said. And the panic builds. And this one dentist, we've moved away because he was great. I'd have loved to stay there. But he just said, okay, I'm going to go to this tooth. Okay, I'm seeing this and that's fine. Going to go to this tooth now. And it wasn't a pleasant experience. And it's expensive. But actually, he actually enabled me to get through it rather than being treated. I'm not that panicky about stuff, but I don't do well with any kind of white coat syndrome. Doctors, nurses, hospitals, dentists. It's just not an environment I'm okay with. But the fact that somebody actually went slowly and told me what they were doing, I'm going to go here and now I'm going to go there, it was the most enjoyable dental experience I've had. And I say that lightly because I didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't horrid.
I think that's a beautiful thing. And that the understanding, helping you know what's happening. The fear in us through anybody, regardless if you're a child or if you're an adult, if you don't know what what is expected of you, if you don't know what is going to be happening next, if you don't know what the norm is, it's one of those most underrated but most important things I think anybody can do is to explain this is what we do, this is how it works, this is how we roll, however you want to explain it, so that there is a people know their boundaries and then they can relax when they know what is expected of them, and what is not, regardless of any experience that anybody's in.
But coming back to sensory health again, if someone's got an issue, you're saying it's probably the trigeminal.
Yep.
Right. And the trigeminal nerve that may well be a factor of that because it's a greater sensitivity, I guess, or you're feeling it more. But there's an awful lot we can do. But if somebody hasn't got the ability to vocalize that like a child, or someone who perhaps struggles with speech, maybe they can't speak, or they can't hear very clearly. All of a sudden, the sensory stuff is going to be on edge because, well, I don't know what you're doing. Why are you doing that? Now, I had an extreme reaction, but actually, you might not have that extreme reaction of just being uncomfortable. Maybe actually it's not even a choice that you're having. You're not thinking I'm panicking, which was mine. hands up to that. But actually, it's more of a, I can't cope with this. I can't cope what it hurt. I can't vocalize. I can't verbalize. I can't tell you what I'm feeling. So if we can't do that, and we see it in toddlers probably most prolifically, then they explode. And the reason they explode is not because they're specifically naughty or really bad or really terrible, but they don't have the ability to speak what's going on. They can't communicate emotions to words. So how do you react in that situation? Well, you kind of explode.
Mm.
So, I mean, how do you help somebody who's got, I suppose I'm thinking actually medical professionals. How do we help medical professionals remember the people that you're treating, that you've seen that thing for the thousandth time, maybe their first time? How do you
Mm.
help them and their sensory health so they're not going to freak out when you're, I don't know, moving an arm about to see if it's really broken or not? How do you actually work better to realize your thousandth case is there first?
Mm, hmm. There is an awful lot of training that folks do go on that. I think as you go through life, you kind of, or as folk get used to working, you kind of forget some of those things sometimes because it becomes so obvious, or because time is so tight, and it's just like, oh, let's just give a little bit of time back to that too, because arousal levels, understanding when there is that fear level of I don't know what to expect, that is across the board, that raises and that makes you more sensitive to sensory input. And we've got the sights and the smells and everything that is different in a new environment already. So you're just compounding a bad situation and making it worse, or you're just compounding any situation and making it go negative, go downwards rather than upwards. So I think it is a lovely thing to remember. Just be consciously aware. Every single new person, they may not know anything. Now, sometimes it can help if folks have things on a website. You can make things clear, or like if you're sending out emails, making all of that really clear. For individuals, I always say whenever we're going into a stressful situation, especially like the dentist, for the families, it's like we need to get you out in the play park first. We need to get you cycling on the bike before you come. We need to be squashing you and rolling you and get setting your system up from a sensory perspective to reduce those arousal levels as much as possible, so that when you are getting a bit stressed, that your whole neurophysiology is in a lot better place to be able to cope with it, so that you don't react quite so negatively, and can cope and actually get the work that you need done on your teeth done. And meanwhile, you play things in your ears so that you don't listen to any drills. You smell things, you fiddle with things. So yeah, dentists or any hospital place, I think it's always really good to have some form of sensory input, fidgets and smells, potentially, depending on the environment that they're in, because you don't want to set somebody else off because they don't like a certain smell. But definitely worth having a pack or a pot of something that folks can use from a sensory perspective.
I was thinking about music because if you watch pretty much any American film, TV series that has a hospital, excuse me, you'll probably see an MRI machine. There's always music. It always seems to be in these things. There's always playing music for the person who's having the scan done. But I was thinking about how that could work really, really well, and how it could work really, really badly. Because if you're having a medical procedure, I had heart surgery last July. I was conscious throughout. I thought, well, music would have been good. But I'm kind of glad that I wasn't able to convince them to play music, because I might have said, can I have some heavy metal? Because that'll take the mind off. Because I want them to be delicate and controlled, especially they're inside my heart while I'm awake. I want them to be very, very calm and relaxed. So as much as I would like music, I also want that person, my surgeon, she really needs to be, I don't care what's, make sure she's okay. The rest of you can have a bad day. She needs to be on a ball.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I'm thinking, well, music can help. But I know, for example, that music can change the atmosphere.
Mm.
You see that in churches. If it's a really good worship song, it just lifts the atmosphere in a beautiful way. If it's done badly and the guitar's out of key, or the drum's out of time, or the singer's not in tune, it grates and everybody's like, it's not so good. So how much really does music have an effect, positively or negatively, on people who've got sensory health struggles?
Oh, massive, massive. Our auditory systems can regulate. Well, all of our systems can regulate and change. And I work with an auditory training program that also does help. Um, change heartbeats. If a heart rate is going particularly high, you use the entrainment, one of those words, to actually get your heart to beat in the same time as the music. So you can use that physiologically. Never mind about getting all of the frequencies that we hear as humans. Working better. So they've got the muscles on the tiny, your attentive tympani muscle on the very inside of your ear. You get that really tuned up and working well. And then that helps your auditory processing while you're working on managing to integrate all the different frequencies so that you're not set off by a motorbike or a scream or the pitch of someone's voice. And music is one of the best ways to help train and treat the auditory system.
Entrainment. Let's go back to that because that's fascinating. I'll tell you where I went straight away in my mind. I have a CD. I've changed the battery twice in this CD. Yes, the CD case has a battery. It's by the band Pink Floyd. The album was called Pulse, and there was a little red flashing LED that flashed at the average rate of a human pulse. And it was on my CD case. Now, Joe hated this thing. It's like, turn it around. So when the battery died, she was very happy. I've replaced it twice. It's quite an ordeal. But exactly what let's go back into entertainment because that's genuinely fascinating me. How does music help with, like, it's the heart, what's the music doing to the heart?
And that is why we are just so much one body, mind, soul, body, spirit. Like it's we're so connected, interconnected, and that's why it's really important that we address all the aspects of who we are, of our humanity. Um, so yeah, no, literally listening to music. If folks on a simple basis, if folks want to go out for the night, they're more likely to put on fast-paced music than they are, the calm spa type music, because the spa type music is there for when you are calm and people want you to stay still because they're giving you a massage or something else is happening and they need you to be calmer. And when the music is slower, that entrainment causes the whole body to just ease off unless they don't connect auditory wise at all, or there's something else happening in their systems that's not helping them. But that's why we use music so powerfully, because it affects our bodies so powerfully by the way that it's all integrated within the brain. You get the sensory input, it goes into the brain, it gets processed, and then is distributed to have an effect on our muscle tone, on our heart rate, on our the way that our blood pumps around the body. It just is it's a remarkable and a beautiful thing how music can be so powerful.
Spartak isn't a band, is it? What's Spartak?
A spa,
Oh.
like that's like yeah, like massage,
Okay.
yeah, that kind
I
of
was
stuff.
just, I'm assuming it's not a band. Anyway, I remember doing a youth group one time. We put some music on. We'll let them play what they want to play. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is a good idea. This is quite a inner city, rough area. And the person who's running the group said, we'll let them play whatever they want. They'll bring it. As long as it's not really badly swear, we'll let them play it. And I remember saying, I was only about 15. I'm not sure that's wise. Not from the music lyrical point of view, although we should have some issues with that because we're supposed to be a Christian youth group here, or outreach group. But actually, if they play loud stuff, isn't that going to do something? No, 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 no. That's just ridiculous. I mean, I had some, I suppose, hardcore heavy metal stuff, kinda, with sort of rap, hip hop sort of stuff going on, and the mood in the place of 60 odd kids completely transformed. We absolutely lost control. We could not control the children after that, and all because we were blasting out music. Now, normally they were a bit rowdy. You had little pockets of stuff going on, but we could kind of jump in and control the outburst of energy and sort of redivert it to a football rather than a wall or a person, and that was okay. But once this music started, we lost control, and we all finished that night saying that was really dangerous. And these are little kids. These are only like, I guess 8 to 11 or something, 7 to 11 kids,
Yeah.
and we lost control, and we didn't do the music, and we changed it. And I said, could we play gentler stuff next time, because they might not like it quite so much, but you know what, it'll be better all round. And we did. And it's one of those, I'm not a scientist, I'm not saying that is what happened, but all I know is the one time I saw it happen, my goodness, I was scared.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some types of music that are, well, all types of music are profoundly impactful, but definitely ones that have I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it just the we know people will know that they'll have heard music in themselves where that even in themselves that they don't feel so good with it, or you definitely are energized in a way that's a more angry type of energy,
Mm.
especially in the way that people sing as well, because our voices are so unique that you get certain types of singing that can really grate and bother you, and then your whole system gets out of sorts, and you just feed off one another in such a bad way. Yeah, it is important.
I love heavy metal. My favorite show is the heavy metal when Steven goes to proper thrash hardcore heavy metal. Always 3 Point Pure, of course, but it's my favorite bit of the week. However, with a bunch of 7 to 11 year olds, I would not recommend that for the simple reason that having been there, it was quite scary. The sort of hip hop hard metal thing that going on, and it was their style, and it just I think because there was no peace through the music. There was no moment of sort of calm. It was really I mean, I guess I would say now all their sensory health levels were maxed out and then some, and then everything happened as a result of that. Now at the time I didn't have that language.
And that they don't have the maturity in their systems to be able to handle it. So as adults, some of the heavy stuff, some of the metal stuff, it doesn't affect adults in the same way that it certainly does children when they're in that maturing, and they're still learning how to modulate, how to moderate, and how to integrate those inputs into their systems. And that's, yeah, can be really disorganizing for children.
Here's a question to finish on. So I heard about a council somewhere had a problem with the local bus station. How do we stop the local youths gathering around, smoking, breaking, threatening? How do we do that? So what they did was they used music, and they used classical music, specifically, I think, operatic, to stop the children playing there. Now, Joe and I chatted one day and said, isn't that kind of like psychological warfare? Isn't that more like torture? Because they knew that the young people hated it so much. I'm thinking, I'm not sure that should be legal, because actually what you're doing is you are causing mental harm in order to prevent a gathering of something. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure that's legal. So what? We had a long conversation, Joe and I, because we were both thinking
Hmm.
that shouldn't be right, should it?
But it's very clever too, though, because it's like,
Well, yeah.
yeah, and on the one hand, you could have like you do for cattle, you've got shock tactics, but that is literally is a physical, it's a physical shock. So you could either do that, with your humans, or actually it's a bit more subtle. It is definitely a bit more subtle. So did you actually come to a conclusion with that? I'm actually quite thinking that's a good one. That is actually.
I think my conclusion was this is really clever, but I think my conclusion with Joe was, but this is psychological warfare, because if you're somebody who's younger, you're probably under 20, therefore you're probably going to have to use a bus because you probably haven't got a car. Therefore, you have to walk through and wait at the bus station
Mm.
where they don't want young people to congregate. So then you can't selectively uncongregate people who have to be there. So
Yeah,
I,
no, that's the bit that's not the right thing.
so sort of, yes, clever, but also that's really cruel. If somebody does particularly have a real passionate hatred against that and they have to wait for their bus, actually, you're now committing possibly some sort of psychological trauma at them. I'm thinking, that's not right. I think our conclusion was there's a better way than trying to irritate people away.
Right.
I think was that it's a very easy, cheap, free fix, but is it a good idea?
Mm.
So I think our conclusion was very clever, but I think my final thought was no, no, I don't want to be in that society, because that's
And
that's that's psychologically
if
traumatizing people.
yeah, I mean, definitely. If that was again, it's just like no. What was the reasoning behind it? Maybe there was a different reason behind it, or I mean, I don't know. I'm not, but yeah.
No, it was just one of those fascinating, if one of those young people has got to wait for the bus and they have a real sensory overload from audio, they're going to be going through absolute hell, standing there waiting and queuing in a place where they don't want young people to be. Now, if it's late at night and there's nobody else around, okay, that might be a different thing. But I don't think it was. I think it was to discourage young people being where there were other people. And
Mm.
I just thought, no, no, that's the wrong approach. That's
Yeah.
pushing a group of people away because you don't like them. Well, why don't you give them something to do other than just go away? Which is
Yeah.
quite a, it's putting your hands up to somebody. It's quite hard. It's quite harsh. I think
Mm.
there's a better way than basically inflicting psychological damage at people. I mean, maybe that's not what happened. I don't know. I'm only surmising from what I read, but I thought from a sensory perspective, that could be really cruel.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Hmm.
Fascinating.
There you are, another session with Laure Jackson. So just remind me, because Wednesdays you got your church Zoom. Let's just finish with that so people know that they can get some real-time help.
Who is looking at church and thinking, I am struggling here. We've got a resource. It is totally free. You just come and have a look and it's there. And that is available, sensoryhealthychurch.com. But I'm also here Wednesday to have a free Zoom just to come and chat, because we are moving into 6 weeks to a sensory healthy church for somebody or anybody, whether it be an individual or a church, who wants to get more serious about making their church an inclusive or a not exclusive space where folks are welcomed into corporate worship and in the life of the church. Then that is coming up in March 2025 and going through so that we can get folks ready for Easter and then for later in the year too.
So. sensoryhealthychurch.com, and if you want any of the other help that Anne can get you, you can go via our website, pure247radio.org/ALJ, pure247radio.org/ALJ. And Laure Jackson, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have some more next time.
Did you know Pure 24/7 Radio has a shop? Well, we do. You can buy merchandise while supporting the work that we do here. Simply head over to www.pure247radio.org/shop. That's www.pure247radio.org/shop.